And I just went to China with Adam, and it was sort of short notice for us because they had all these wonderful things going on, and we said we really wanted to go when we could see a Chinese woven arch bridge, a woven arch bridge, and being built. And they said, well, what stage would you like to see that? We said, well, really, the undercarriage, the structural part, we'd love to see that being built. So, and we're willing to help or whatever. And they said, well, so they checked around and found a project going on in Sushan County. And so we booked our flights and
Got our visas
right? 10-year visas, so we can go back and headed over. I'm a retired timber framer, log builder. I had a company here in Newberry building called the Wooden House Company. I built with logs for 40 plus years, designing and building log houses. And so now I get to do all the things I couldn't do when I was working. So then we over to China.
Yeah, well, I'm Adam Miller. I live over in West Corinth, and John and I have been working together for quite a long time. And I'm an independent carpenter specializing in building stuff with timber and logs. And I edit the technical journal Timber Framing for the Timber Framers Guild. I've been doing that for 7 years since Ken Grower retired from that. I also I do a lot of teaching. Hardwood School down in Alston, New Hampshire, and I do a lot of teaching in the community building projects program for the Timber Framers Guild. I enjoy making a lot of international connections in my carpentry. So the last number of years I've been able to go on a trip to China. I have a business now importing the old buildings from Japan, and I have go trips to France and England and Sweden and other places all over to share carpentry knowledge around the world. It's great to be able to do that and kind of follow a job.
Right. So we're going to sit back here so we can read.
Now we're supposed to sit over here because we're getting recorded. So.
Yes, right. There you go.
Okay. All right, we'll try.
Say the Langwea. How do you say that?
There's a Lang Chow.
Long Chow. Long Chow means woven arch covered bridges. And that's the word they use to say all that. It's much easier, actually, to just get the pronunciation right. Whoop.
Okay.
The woven arch bridge, or Lang Chow, is an arch-shaped structure that is one of the most extraordinary timber building traditions in the world. My interest in these bridges began 4 years ago when the June 2021 issue of Timber Framing, that Adam edits, came out with 2 book reviews on the subject, one by Adam and the other by Jan Lewandowski, who is here. And both Vermont carpenters. Heading into retirement after a 40-year career in log and timber home design and construction, I was intrigued by the simplicity and elegance of these structures, never mind their size and beauty. I saw this sketch and said to myself, hey, I can build that. So I did, using no fasteners. It became the parade float that year in the West Newbury Parade, and then we set it up in the Tucker Mountain Town Forest, just a couple miles up the road. It is a 10-minute walk from the east parking lot up there. Anyone's welcome to go check it out. I'm sure I got this one. Last year, I built a 1/6 scale model of a more sophisticated woven arch bridge for a second parade float. We are planning to build it downstream from the first one as part of an all-persons trail with completion scheduled for spring of 2026. I used one of the books as a guide, this one here, actually, and which I'll be reading some out of a little bit tonight, and found the process all-consuming. I loved it.
The model is here on the table.
And the model's right there, yeah. You're welcome to. You could even stand on it if you wanted to, but I'd have to help you get up there. Ronald Knapp, one of the authors of of the two big books in the back table there in the room here. The book was reviewed by Adam for the timber framing. Had spent over 10 years traveling to China to do research on covered bridges. He graciously connected us with his friends in Shanghai, China. Excited about our plans to build a woven arch bridge in Vermont, the Chinese-American philanthropist, Mr. Frank Yi, bought us plane tickets and put us up in his 13th floor penthouse apartment for 2 nights upon arrival there on June 17th. Really nice guy. He's like 92, and
Yeah.
he had breakfast with us and dinner, took us out. He was great. He set up meetings with scholars and professors from the local architecture university. What was the name of that?
It was a Shanghai Jiao Tong Technical University, which they of course like to refer to as the MIT of China. But slightly tongue-in-cheek, I could tell. I'm not sure what the actual reputation is, but it's good. It's a good school.
Yeah, they were all there. They helped us put together a 2-week study trip itinerary for us, including all transportation and people to take us around to visit dozens of woven arch covered bridges all through the MZ Mountains of southeast China, about 5 hours south of Shanghai, by bullet train and electric car. And there's the plan, the itinerary. So the red line is the bullet train, you can tell.
Yeah.
And the green line is the green car. Yeah. And so we did a little browsing in the grocery store in Shanghai before we left to get what we needed. Plenty of fish. Hit the train station, and then just marveled at the infrastructure flying through cities that just went on and on south of Shanghai. Apparently there's over 20 million people in Shanghai now, and they're not letting more in. And the cities around them are all approaching 20 million, and it's phenomenal. But we didn't see any mowed lawns whatsoever anywhere. It was all farmed land. Everything was being used to grow food. We got to our smooth ride to Wenshu via bullet train and electric car. The Wenshu Covered Bridge Culture Society greeted us warmly and enthusiastically, wanting to know all about our plans to build a Lanquio and to share their enthusiasm and knowledge.
Yeah, so this is an organization which has been really important for popularizing the bridges for tourism, both for documenting and preserving bridges, but also for popularizing them for tourism. Just like very similar to how bridges have been popular for tourism here in New England and across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and whatnot. They have been really successful on that because China's really trying to encourage a lot of domestic tourism, and in this area, in this one county where we were here, there are 32 historic woven arch bridges that were built, before the Cultural Revolution, and then there are 65 bridges that have been built in the last 10 to 15 years. So overall, this is a great story of in China. This is a great story of the revival of a traditional trade, which is very unusual, and it's very impressive to see the new bridges being built in the identical fashion as the old bridges, and people in generations passing on that traditional knowledge from one generation to the next.
So the guy standing next to Adam is a master bridge builder, and he was scheduled to start a bridge on this day, but they waited until we got there to let us be at the opening ceremony, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And the other 2 guys are with the Bridge Society.
Yeah.
So the next day we arrived at the new bridge and actually felt very much at home. And just like the old wooden house company log yard, that I had that we had logs just like this with joints, not exactly like this, but similar. And so we got to celebrate with them this. Can you hear that okay? It's just fireworks. This is how they start, and I think also finish their bridge projects. Probably they have multiple celebrations in between.
It seems like this kind of bridge would be good with like gorges.
Oh, wait do you see the
I'm
shot?
just saying, it may
yeah.
not be the best
Deep.
application for every.
Right. Vermont's OSHA branch would probably not have been too keen on starting any job this way. Oh, the scaffolding, yeah, that's all scaffolding.
Bamboo.
False work.
No, it's pipe staff.
No, it is pipe staging, yeah. It's huge. Actually, the next picture you'll see how big it is. There's the bridge master builder that we had been with the night before. Don't worry, this is only one of a couple of two videos that I'm going to show. So. It's very tricky to get the first two logs in position. There's one going on that side and one on this side. And there's a whole lot of stuff that has to happen, and you're going to learn in the next 10, 15 minutes. You'll see what I'm talking about. This is all cypress, right?
This is yeah.
The most commonly used wood over there was cypress. And we saw lots of beautiful trees in the forest
Yeah, they call it.
of that species.
They call it shanmu. Shanmu is the Chinese name for its Cunninghamia, which is I think it's the only species of the genus Cunninghamia, which is it's a type of cypress. Yeah.
And it grew tall and straight, just perfect. Lots of tall mountains around, the deep valleys. That's just why these rivers are everywhere, and they needed the bridges.
It's important to note that these bridges were all historically used as they're all pedestrian bridges, because up until I first visited China 26 years ago, and I was in like a province away from here, and at that point we were up in the mountains, and there were lots of towns, villages that we went to that had only gotten their first road into the village that you could drive on in the past year. And so the pedestrian travel is the way, traditional means of travel in the mountains in Southeast China. So that's part of the story with these bridges. It's a different functional purpose than our covered bridges here historically.
So oddly enough, at that point, we were there for a couple of hours, and we were absolutely thrilled to be there on this project. And then all of a sudden, our driver translator comes over to us and says, "I just got a phone call, and we have to leave." And they, for some reason, and we really don't know any of the details even today, we had to leave the job site. We couldn't stay there. And it was a big disappointment. It was really, we were supposed to be there for 5 or 6 days and then go touring bridges, and we had to start that day. So the dragon was firing the wrong way or something, I don't know. But, so we got going, and now we'll read a little more about the history here. Although the Lanqiu's universal uniqueness challenges widespread viewpoints as to its origin and genealogy, in Southeast China there are over 100 bridges, and some dating back as far as 500 years. There are new bridges being built today. So this is the
Santiago Bridge.
As a result of China's modernization, which eventually reached the remote mountains, wooden arch bridges lost their market and gave way to domination by concrete bridges in the middle of the last century. After the last projects of the 70s, the construction tradition of woven arch bridges disappeared in the Minjie Mountains, where we visited. But as this bridge exemplifies, it's probably a few years old
Yeah.
and beautifully built. And this is the weaving of the logs, the woven arch. There's two systems that happen here. There's the first system, which is 3 logs. You saw the first 2 in the video, and then a third one connecting them. And then there's a second system that weaves between them, and there's 5 parts to that. And the joinery is really interesting. Most of it pretty simple, but right up in the top there was the little red button. Right up here, you can see these through tenons. This is called a cow beam going across. That's like the biggest cross beam of all these cross beams. And by putting a through tenon through there, they can get the angles just right. And it gets pretty complicated how it all works, but the bearing of the cross beams on the woven logs there needs to be contact everywhere, and so that they're bearing evenly. There's a close-up of the through tenons through the cow beam.
Was that Bob? No, there's no iron in this. This is all wood. And the stability of these bridges is large. In that structure is largely generated through. I mean, this is an indeterminate load path, as Western engineers would call it, and so it's a matter of getting everything to bear evenly, such that there's plenty of capacity to bear the load, even if you don't know exactly where it is. In the Crawford bridges we have in New England, there's sort of different patented trusses or specific, truss designs where it's very clear what the load path is through these things. Here, there's all these different. It's a composite of the entirety of it that bears that generates enough capacity to bear the loads, and and you get that bend, and you get that generally sharing through bending. Because here we there's both axial load and bending load that's flexing all the pieces to bear together evenly and share the load and
So
generate stability.
This little video is going to show you very quickly how these things go together. I took this in a museum over there. Go ahead.
So you can see that first system has a 3-part arch, so it's essentially a truncated pyramid, and the master builders there generally are of the opinion that that part bears about 70 or more percent
There's
of
the
the
weaving
load.
of the logs right there.
And that second system is there to create stability, so that the load so that it doesn't shift at all.
Now you're going to get a quick engineering report here. That's the way the loads are, and then it coming down and these things can support phenomenal amount of weight.
Yeah.
A lot of these bridges had stone floors in them. They all had tile roofs, heavy tile roofs, and enormous pavilion structures on top.
Yeah. So though they are built and used as pedestrian bridges, that doesn't mean they were only subject to light loads. There are other covered bridge structural systems that they use in China too, all of which totally different concepts of structure than we use here in the West. But they're all they all have very heavy roofs and heavy structures to create a lot of compression for stability, rather than seeking for very light structurally efficient structure to support loads. Yeah. And these bridges, when you jump up and down to them, they're generally they're more. You often get a lot less bounce than we have on our bridges here. We didn't quantify that, but just jumping up and down. Yeah.
So the first thing we would do when we came to a bridge was find a way to get down underneath and see if we could get actually up inside the log structure and at least to view it and take pictures of from underneath and study the different ways. Every bridge was a little bit different. There were a lot of similarities, but sometimes we found some that were just incredibly different.
But that said, almost every bridge you could get underneath at least one side and get great views of them, which was marvelous.
Almost, but on the next trip, I'm bringing a rubber raft. It'd be really helpful.
Well, a lot of the folks we were
Right here.
a lot of the folks we were traveling with also had drones with them for flying around, which was for getting a lot of views to see. Yeah.
But there's nothing like getting down there and actually touching the logs, seeing how big they were,
Yeah.
feeling, and it was amazing, the differences. Some bridges had enormous logs. Others had really some spindly ones in there, and they still had the stone floors and the tile roofs, and they were still staying up.
So
This one was brand new.
So that means, given the really slight proportions of some of these bridges, some of the logs and some of these bridges, it really shows how the structural system really distributes the load evenly throughout all the members to be able to support it, rather than concentrating on any given piece, which is
And here you can
really
see
cool.
the staircases and the walkways that
Yeah.
made it really easy to get down.
Yeah,
There were a lot of them.
because they're pedestrian bridges. The typical access is via a staircase that's at right angles to the course of the bridge, because that was not impeding anything from going on there.
Now, this is getting more towards the size we want to build in Tucker Mountain.
Though this is using a slightly different structure, a slightly different structural
This
system
is a
underneath,
3-3.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now this one would be perfect in Tucker Mountain.
This is actually the first bridge that that the master builder of the bridge that we went to see being built. This is his first bridge that he built a dozen years ago, or 15, 20 years ago, or something.
Which was really early in the
Revival.
rebuilding,
Yeah.
the revival,
They use cypress for the cross beams as well, or the different way?
Good question.
I think
Not sure.
most of it was the Shanmu, the Cunninghamia, the cypress. That is our understanding is that was the first generally the first choice for the whole structure. Sometimes there was some pine, but typically it was, you could guess cypress and be right almost all the time.
There was one bridge we saw that was brand new. The logs were huge.
Yeah.
They had come from Taiwan.
No,
They won't, whether they even have them in China or not, they may have them, but they don't want to cut them. They'd rather get them from Taiwan, which isn't far away.
No, I think they're from Indonesia.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
thought you said Taiwan.
Yeah, they're tropical logs from Indonesia. Well, there might have been one from Taiwan, but I can't imagine. them
They were
wanting
huge. They were so big
No,
that
those
they-
are from Indonesia.
They
yeah,
had to
they're
be slabbed off on the sides to fit down in there.
That bridge, of course, was a bridge which was to set the record for span at
Yeah.
48 meters for the Woven Arch Bridge.
Right.
So yeah, the abutments
Very
are on either side. Yeah, and a lot of times they're elevated too. So it's quite a lot of masonry work, and I mean there's so much cut stone still being used today in architecture in China. It's really amazing.
All that said, look what was holding up this little bridge. Not much. We were amazed to see the lack of structure under this thing. And it had a stone floor and tile roof. It was amazing. And it was lovely.
How old is this one?
Not sure. We had so many dates and so many. It was hard
Yeah,
to
I mean the
get it all together.
concepts for what the age of an individual structure in East Asia are often a little bit different than we'd like here, because it's been the built history there is so long that a lot of times the dates that are given the most optimistic date, the date when there was first a bridge first built on that location, and then they'll often say there are different renovations, repairs, or reconstructions.
Some of them were moved, actually.
Yeah, but it's often it's unclear exactly the material you're looking at here, exactly how old a lot of it is. But given that today, in the revival of this building heritage, they're building the same fashion as in the past. Sort of maybe time has a little bit of different take on that, because it wasn't, each bridge wasn't necessarily indicative of great evolution in the system. The system is figured out quite a long time ago, and there are details which sort of indicate sort of who might have been building it, by the individual craftsperson's style. But there are a lot of detailing, like this one here on my index card, that were very consistent through the bridges we saw.
You're saying the joint detail.
That joint detail was quite consistent.
If you look at the drawing there and then look up to the left at the photo, this is looking down on the top of that post, straight down. And you can see the detail in the photograph.
Yeah.
And it was a very consistent joint that we saw throughout these
Yeah.
bridges. So now I've showed you a bunch of pictures of the bridges from the outside. Now we're going to look at the pavilion parts, the covered bridge part on top.
Yeah. Because it's important to note in these bridges, in the Chinese covered bridges in general, the structure is all below the deck. In our covered bridges here, the trusses are above the deck. Sometimes you have some arches that go below the deck a bit, but the structure that's holding it up is all below the deck, and then these corridors on top are a very consistent structural design, which is pretty. It's pretty basic. Not basic, but it's very. This is pretty much Chinese house carpentry that's on top of these, and these were often historically they were typically done by local house carpenters. The structure underneath was done by specialist bridge builders, and then once the deck was installed, then the local carpenters would build these structures on top.
So if you back to this picture, every carving and every beam is different, all the way down through. It was remarkable. That's just one thing and the double posts on both sides were pretty much, that was very consistent in all the pavilion bridges, and we're pretty sure it's for lateral strength. You've got all these through tenons, right down here, and these pieces going through both posts all over the place. And that's giving this thing, if you imagine it racking a little bit, everything's going to bind very quickly. And it's incredibly strong laterally.
Yeah. So the key distinction here to understand is that in East Asian carpentry, in China, in Japan, in Korea, and elsewhere, there's no diagonal bracing like we have in all our old buildings here, and because being a very active seismic area, that was never popular. Because the diagonal brace try to make the building stiff and resist lateral loading, whereas these structures gain resilience laterally from having a profusion of joinery surfaces that are making up, but they can give in a seismic load. A lot of our structures, if there was a big earthquake, you'd end up with some progressive failure in them because the load. That lateral load will accumulate to the stiffest member, which is using one of these little braces, and then you'd have progressive failure because you'd get beyond the capacity for one of those members to bear the load, and then you'd have failure, where these are less concerned about motion but more about resilience.
So this is two pictures.
Yep.
One, the pavilion, and then this is the ceiling. Every bridge had ceiling details, and they were all different. First thing I'd do is take my phone, set it down under the ceiling on the floor, put it on selfie mode, line it up, get a nice picture of the ceiling, and there's probably 5 or 6 spots in every bridge to photograph like that. And it was just, and this piece, there's hundreds of little pieces of wood, all the same, but it's put together like a big puzzle. very complex. And that was one of the most amazing, but I said that about 50 times. I
Yeah.
think.
Is there snow? Is it covered for the snow, or why are they covered?
Rain.
Rain.
Monsoon. Yeah, they get very little snow in this part of China.
Yeah.
We saw a couple of pictures. It was just a dusting.
Yeah.
It would have. Yeah.
But there's other reasons they're covered also. One is which is that these bridges were, they're often in. The bridges are often used to influence the flow of energy through the landscape, and in feng shui. So the bridges were often found at the entrance to a village and at the exit to a village over the streams to try to hold energy within that space, so that the vitality and wealth of the village can flow out. And they're often used as connecting elements in a larger the geomancy of the larger landscape in the way. So they're often like forests that come down to to a bridge, and then to a bridge site and go up the other side of the valley. And the bridge is sort of this symbolic connection between there to hold the energy in the landscape. So that's one aspect of that. But you can see there's these benches here on the sides. These bridges were used, and we saw this too. Were used for as a place to take a nap and to get out of the weather. There were a couple of times we were at bridges that were okay. So we'll see some pictures of that there. But so these bridges have a lot of social functions. A lot of the older ones have had like food stalls and things like that in them. So they serve a lot of cultural functions beyond just the transportation function.
This is a very unusual pavilion. It was all painted with a heavy coating that was really sealing the logs up, but the painting of the carvings was really interesting.
Well,
here's a close up
on the posts there also. Those are actually there's a cloth wrapped around it, like gessoed onto it to make it really smooth for the paint base, which is interesting.
And again, all these cross beams going down through all had different lettering or whatever was on there, drawings, carvings. Every single one was different.
So does the lettering, does it have like spiritual significance, like yoga or
It depends on the bridge, I think. We were in places where there was one bridge which was right next to sort of the tomb of like a famous poet. So there's his like poetry was in the bridge there. But a lot of the times there's writing. I mean, the most important writing I think it is up on the ridge beam in the center, where which is there's a lot of ceremony around setting that, and it usually tells that there's the names of the folks who built the bridge and some some protective poems that go up there, and then also the donors. These bridges are typically funded by the local people in the village, and not. There are only a few bridges we saw that had been funded by the government. They're typically efforts of the local people, and so there's donor boards, showing the records of a lot of the donors. There's also a lot of the older bridges. There's also, you can see cultural revolution graffiti in them and such too. So. Yeah.
So we visited 4 master bridge builders during the tour, and this was one of them. We didn't get to his shop until 9 o'clock at night, and we were there till probably midnight. And a beautiful bridge he had built was 2 blocks away, so we walked over there, and it was amazing. And he talked for quite a while about the 5 steps of design, and lots of all the feng shui talk and stuff, and it was fascinating, but it was all in Chinese, so he's going rambling on. Our interpreters are trying to understand what he's talking about, and then they're trying to translate to us, so I don't know how much of it we actually got.
But in the traditional build design of these bridges, given that they're that in the village setting, especially that they're being used to influence the flow of energy through the landscape. There's a lot of there's a lot of ethereal aspects to the design, and there's aspects of the scale of it, and figuring out that there's a lot of numerology involved, and there's these series of different rulers that have different scales that are divided in different scales, called Luban rulers. Luban was the sort of mythical founder of Chinese carpentry, and so there's all these different size scales of rules that are used to come up with proportional relationships that make sense. And when all that works out, when somebody's kid gets into the university they wanted and passes their exams, it was clear that everything worked out and everybody's really into that. Of course, if the kid doesn't get into school, sometimes there's some questions about how good the proportioning was. Yeah, things like that. So yeah.
So this is back in that museum, and these are some of the tools, hand planes, and this is a hand plane here, incredible thing. And then, can anybody guess what this is?
There's a saw there, yeah.
There is a saw, there's hand planes, there's all kinds of, it's a tool rack.
Yeah,
It's this toolbox.
yeah.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
I mean, for us, I felt kind of embarrassed going into some of these master carpenters' shops and just seeing the few extremely heavily used tools that they use to build these things when I, have trouble storing all my tools at home. And, it's impressive.
Model building is a huge thing. All the master carpenters do it.
Did they build models? Often, yeah. Lots of people would show us models. Here, I think. Do you want to talk about this?
Well, this is one master builder's one room of his office. When we got there, he had like 10 college students around a table in the other room on a Sunday afternoon, and he was talking with them and teaching them stuff, and then he took about a half an hour or an hour to talk to us, and meanwhile we poked around his shop and looked at all his model building stuff. It was great.
And his son traveled with us for a couple of days also. And his son is graduated from Technical University. He's going to be the next generation of master bridge carpenters there. So,
and he was in his 20s. He was really already a master builder getting there. This is another guy. And again, I'm sure I didn't get half of what he said. But
well, this is Wu Dagen. He's built a lot of bridges. This is the carpenter that Louis Yan spent most of the time with. Yep. And the different carpenters showed us had different levels of importance they placed on the different aspects of the design.
that's the aspiring bridge builder on the
Yeah.
right. Really nice guy. And he made us stand on that thing with no fasteners. It's just sticks. You could get off and kick it, and it would just come all apart.
Yeah, you just lift it up in the middle, and the whole thing falls apart. Yeah.
But that's the basic principle of the woven arch bridge right there. And on the right is what they had before bridges, but they still build them because there's so many rivers, and there's so many bridges, but there's still places you have to walk a long way from one bridge to the other. So they build these things with rocks or even concrete so that you can walk right across these in low water, across a really wide river.
And here's a bridge in a really beautiful setting. Now, another aspect thing to know about the bridges is, given that they're built into the overall the energetic context of the overall landscape. Usually there's a bridge, and then there's also ancient trees by the bridge. So here you can see this beautiful ancient tree. You can see that it's got like that extra trunk coming out, which is actually concrete prop to hold it up, going over the bridge. So
That's a concrete prop.
Yes.
That's the tree.
Yeah.
Up here. We can't see
that's
it.
that's a camphor tree. Yeah. A lot of times there are camphor trees, the big old trees by the bridges. There's a particularly elaborate pavilion on top of one of the corridors. It was very unusual to have an octagonal upper stage there.
So this is a time when we were on a bridge and a thunderstorm came through, and the workers out in the fields came up to the bridge to wait for the storm to go over,
Yeah.
and just hung out. It was really cool. And here's another time, it was late on a hot day or something, and
Yeah.
these old folks were just hanging out.
Yeah, because these bridges
Chatting.
are often really cool because they're right over they're under in the shade over the flowing water of the river, you know. So it's often it was really remarkably cool.
And this is under a big bridge on a rainy day, and everybody's playing cards.
Yeah.
This is a beautifully preserved historic village. Okay, this is a famous bridge
It's the Rulong Bridge.
called the Rulong Bridge.
Yeah.
I'm going to just read a little bit about it. Rulong Bridge, literally dragon-like bridge, is the oldest and the only Ming Dynasty woven arch bridge still in existence today. It is located at the downstream side in Yushan Village, literally Moon Hill Village. A small village in the southern boundary of the Gingyan County, Zhejiang Province. The village is named after a crescent-shaped hill along the Jiu River, which runs past the village. There used to be 6 bridges within a radius of about 2 kilometers, and 4 of them are still standing today and in a quite good condition. Rulong Bridge stands at the tip of the crescent moon, a location regarded as the dragon head, according to the precepts of Feng Shui. With a drum tower at the northern end, 2 pavilions decorated with rich Diogyong in the middle, and at the southern end, as its name indicates, the design of the bridge expresses the metaphor of a dragon. The tower plays the role of the raised head. The pavilions represent the crooked back and an upstanding tail. On the middle top roof beam, dong, of the central pavilion, an inscription gives the construction's completion date. The bridge was finished in the 5th year, 1625, of the Tiangi reign of the Ming Dynasty. The local genealogy book has the same information regarding the time of construction.
Yeah, so the dugong that were referred to there are the bracketing systems. You see a lot of more formal buildings in both in China and in different forms in Japan. It's probably in Korea too. And those originally were reserved to just for like imperial buildings and such for status. And over time, they were, in hundreds of years ago, they were allowed to be used on more other structures also. And so I think there are 2 principal. You can see those underneath the eave there, all the brackets that run together like that, the bracketing there, and those are in contrast to all the cross frames in these buildings, which are called taliang, which is sort of those are where you have the upright posts with all the horizontals that are more just through them for stability, and those are I think those. My impression is that those are the 2 principal types of building carpentry forms in traditional Chinese carpentry, though I have not studied traditional Chinese carpentry much at all. So
This is inside the bridge. Much simpler than the new ones, especially. The new ones are just so elaborate. Remember the name of this one?
I don't remember the name of this bridge, but this bridge is an interesting story. This bridge was built over this gorge, this long gorge, and this was to be an example. There's somebody who wanted to build it was like a theme park where they wanted to like reproduce replicas of like all the different like famous bridges in China, like one after the other down this valley. And this is the only one that got built. I don't know exactly why the project didn't go forward, but
Which is wonderful because it's a beautiful
It's a
valley.
particularly dramatic site. I mean, that's a lot of abutment there. And as you see through the different photos in the slideshow, the bridges have different amounts of camber in them. Different amounts. It's not really camber in this case, but the decks are variously curved. This one has a lot of curvature. Some of them are much flatter. And obviously, for our bridge in Ducker Mountain, it's going to be quite flat because it's part of a accessible trail.
There was one bridge in particular, we all were like almost wanting to get our crampons on to go up this thing. It was so steep. It was unbelievable. And part of that was because the bridge had actually shifted a little bit. And one side was steeper than the other.
Yeah.
It was
What holds the posts down?
What holds the
up
post
on top.
There's
question.
these are some of the details we weren't able to get a lot of really good observation of. But the posts,
As you see in the model, the 4 posts on the corners
Yeah.
go all the way down.
Yeah.
And that was pretty typical.
in some of the counties we went to, there are other counties where they were actually typically stop at the deck, but everybody agreed that if they go all the way through, it's a better structural system. And I think that was a remnant of the historical practice of having this bridge specialist carpenters build the structure underneath the deck and then leaving the house carpenters above the deck. But our understanding is generally, there's the posts are tenon. There's a mortise and tenon joint into the structural beams underneath to hold
Because
them down.
some of them had the stones or some underneath.
Those were just sitting on the stones.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the stone plinths, those are just sitting there. But
Like right there,
you'll see
yeah.
those are on the abutments,
Yeah.
not over the wooden span of
There
the bridge.
were some that had beams under, once you get out of the bridge, under the posts, and we assumed they were attached to those mortise tenon, hopefully. But you couldn't. I mean, we actually looked for loose floorboards that we could pull up. We found a couple actually
Yeah.
to look under and see what was going on. But
What's your question, Fritz?
Well, when you have to sell your bridges, how much of the beams was original?
So how much of the beams were original?
Yeah,
It varies a lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of these bridges did have calamitous floods and stuff come through and they're damaged. There are some bridges that were wiped away in floods and everybody, all the local folks found 90% of the pieces and they've reassembled the bridge and just repaired it. But over time, the bridges have needed regular maintenance, and what that means can vary a lot. Just like, bridges here in North America, what the repairs are necessary to maintain the original form of the bridge can mean that there's a lot of material gets replaced. And it was, in some of the bridges it was pretty obvious that there was a lot of replaced material, but there could have been many different campaigns of repairs and replacement. So
there's also a lot of stone and cement bridges and things, and they're building these pavilions on those also
yeah,
to cover them, protect them. It's a huge amount of work here for the local tradesmen.
yeah.
Unbelievable. This is, you're going to see.
But much of the new construction is generally being done. They call them like memorial bridges or other things. Where I think there's a lot of it's being funded by folks who left these villages, went and made a lot of money in the booming economy in China, and wanted to build these structures back in the
Those
villages.
of you that are
representative
into
of that.
axes, I'd never seen an axe like this anywhere. It's
Yeah.
bent, just like it looks in that photo.
Yeah, they call it
And it was
moon
not
axe.
easy to get used to. I actually got a chance to use it, and
Yeah,
it was really weird. What was it called?
a moon axe.
Moon axe.
Yeah.
Like wood boring insect termites, or so far that the
We definitely saw evidence of a lot of chemical treatment on some of the logs. You see some of the logs that came down to the abutments that had like tar on them and things like that on some of the newer bridges. But there was definitely insect damage, and not nearly as much as seems to be I found just typical in Japan. It seems like there's a much there was less, but I don't know exactly why. But
I saved a couple of my favorite bridges for the ending here. This is a stone trail, ancient trail they call them. It's just go for miles up into the mountains. It was so hot, so humid that the only hiking I did was 5 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock. And it was usually from my motel room because everybody else was sleeping. But so during the day out here, it was just too hot.
But those trails like that, those ancient roads, those are the traditional roads that went between villages in everywhere in mountainous China. That's where all the trade was carried out, walking down those trails, and those are what led to these bridges. So before there were paved roads for vehicles in rural China, a lot of rural China just in the last 20 years, that was transportation in rural China.
But now the bullet trains, they're putting them right through the mountains, literally. tunnels.
There's a lot of tunneling. Yeah.
More than Norway, and I've been there and seen them. It's unbelievable. So I walked on one ancient trail one morning, and it was all grown over, but I could feel the rocks underneath, so I knew I was still on the trail. And the cities come right up to the edge of the mountain, edge of the forest, so you can get up, go for a 20-minute walk, and be out of the city. Incredible. And they're all the, you get out of the cities and out of the towns, and there's smaller and smaller villages, and then all this terraced land being farmed. And a lot of the terracing appeared to be brand new.
Yep.
In some places, I know it was. There were brand new rock walls, but the gardens came right down to the back alleys of the towns. Amazing. And then you come down into town at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the market's already busy. Electric motor scooters, electric cars. Most of the trucks are three-wheel trucks, little things, and not nearly as many cars as here.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it still, these are traditionally walking and bridges for walking and animals, whatever. But are any of the bridges built for like smaller vehicles or cars? Or no?
The traditional woven arch bridges, no.
Okay.
But we did go across some of the stone arch bridges like this, but level top, which were built by the government that had corridors put over them that were able to drive through, and it felt kind of weird because you see it that way, you don't see the bridges that way, yeah.
So this is a very modern city. This is a little historic village way out in the mountains that we drove to. This is a drone shot. While we were eating dinner one night, this guy took his drone and took a picture up over the house. That's what, you couldn't see any of that on the ground.
Yeah.
It's amazing. This is the
It's a museum.
old folk game of chopstick bridge building. And I think Mom's doing the best bridge there.
Yeah.
On the left, this is in a museum. This is a typical, there's one in the back, some chopsticks right on that table back there. If you want to try it, Adam will show you how.
This was a little.
This is typical dinner. You'd sit down in a restaurant, or this is in a private home, but
Yeah.
with Lazy Susan in the middle, and then everybody, you just take what you want, a little bit at a time from each dish, and try it out, and it's quite fun. We got pretty good with chopsticks, actually. Oh, let's see if I can.
You have a video of this.
Watch his face. That was in a restaurant in Shanghai.
Yep.
Whoops.
Wow.
Let's see, Chinese eggplant and green beans on the left. And I think that was like a bean tofu, a green bean tofu or
Yeah.
something on the right. Very colorful.
Look at these columns.
Yeah.
Oh, and these are my favorite. Red bayberries. They are the juiciest things. You pop that whole thing right off the bush into your mouth. It's like having a glass of juice. Amazing.
They
Red
call-
bayberries.
Yeah, they call them red bayberries. Yeah, I'm not.
Do you eat it or just?
Oh, yeah.
suck it?
You eat
Eat
it.
the whole
There's,
thing.
there's a big pit.
And I would go out for a walk, and these guys would be coming up out of the terraces, and they'd hand me a whole bag of these things.
Yeah.
And I'd say, oh, I don't have any money with me. He'd say,
Yeah.
no, take it.
Yeah,
take it."
we were there at the peak season for these, and they don't
Yeah.
store it all.
Yeah.
It's like a,
Ian. How big that thing?
This is mushroom
Okay, good. Yeah.
growing. Big time industry in China. These are plastic bags filled with sawdust. I'm sure it's done a certain way. And then they inoculate them with the
mycelium.
mushroom stuff. And the mushrooms just grow right through the plastic and pop out. And I don't know how long it takes, but you come back and that whole thing will be full of mushrooms. And there were millions of these buildings around.
Yep.
It was incredible.
And rice. There's rice.
Yep. There's an early morning shot showing you how they keep the cities right tucked in the valleys and leave the mountains alone. In you know, America, that'd be all condos and vacation homes all over those mountains. And this was my favorite bridge of all. I left it till last. It's the local people thought of it as a centipede crawling along the earth.
In this one, you can kind of see how the bridge, the woven arch structure wasn't super stable on this one. It actually has shifted a little bit. You can kind of see how it looks like it kind of like shifted to the far end. So this is one where the far side is much steeper. The deck of the far side is much steeper than on the near side, and that's can be a consequence of the bridge, the design of it not being quite right, and that it shifts. But they're also when bridges do that, they often become one of the most loved feature of the bridge, and it seems like it's not necessarily doesn't push it beyond its beyond the needed capacity either. So it's
If you can fight it, embrace it, right?
well.
If you can fight it, embrace it. You can change it.
These are, I mean, I feel like anything you'd want to try to do to change and fix this would make it worse.
Right.
Yeah.
So
This is like where that structure settled into position. It just wasn't quite where you wanted a plan to have it settle into position. Yeah.
So I've got at least 3,700 more pictures if you want to keep going. But I was going to stop here.
Yeah.